He didn't lose his life in one dramatic moment. He lost it slowly, by never saying the words, "I was wrong." Most people don't realize pride is dangerous because it doesn't shout, it whispers. And by the time you notice it, everything important is already gone. Daniel Harris was the kind of man people respected without really knowing why. He was calm, dependable, and carried himself with quiet confidence. At 42, he had what most would call a stable life, a solid career in operations management, a modest house in the suburbs of Ohio, and a reputation for being reliable. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was certain. Certain he was right. Certain he knew better. Certain that admitting doubt meant weakness. Daniel grew up believing that strength meant control. His father never apologized. His mother avoided conflict. Arguments in their home didn't end. They just went silent. Daniel learned early that whoever spoke last, or not at all, was the one who won. So he built his life around that belief. At work, Daniel was respected, but distant. He listened just enough to respond, rarely enough to reconsider. He didn't interrupt, but he also didn't bend. His coworkers knew better than to challenge him directly. It wasn't worth the subtle tension that followed. At home, the pattern continued. His wife Claire was thoughtful and emotionally perceptive. She noticed things Daniel didn't, or didn't want to. She remembered birthdays, moods, small shifts in tone. She believed conversations could heal. Daniel believed conversations complicated things. When Claire brought up concerns about their growing distance, about how he dismissed her opinions, Daniel didn't raise his voice. He simply explained why she was mistaken. "I'm just being realistic," he'd say. "You're overthinking this. This isn't a big deal." Each sentence was calm, reasonable, logical, and each one quietly taught Claire that her feelings didn't matter as much as his certainty. Daniel never thought of himself as proud. Proud people were arrogant, loud, obvious. He was just firm. The distance between Daniel and Claire didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in through everyday moments. Unreturned texts, conversations cut short, decisions made without discussion. When Claire suggested couples counseling, Daniel laughed lightly, not mockingly, just enough to signal dismissal. "We're fine," he said. "Every couple goes through phases." But fine had become empty. Claire stopped pushing. That should have worried him, but it didn't. Silence felt peaceful to Daniel. It felt like resolution. At work, a similar shift was happening. A younger colleague, Marcus, began offering ideas during meetings. His suggestions weren't radical, but they challenged Daniel's systems. Daniel felt the familiar tightening in his chest when Marcus spoke. Not anger, something quieter, defensive. He responded politely, then did things his own way anyway. When Marcus tried again, Daniel said, "Let's not overcomplicate what already works." That phrase followed him everywhere. Don't overcomplicate. Don't question. Don't admit uncertainty. Pride doesn't always look like ego. Sometimes it looks like calm resistance to change. The turning point came on a Thursday afternoon, disguised as an ordinary meeting. Daniel's company was restructuring. Leadership wanted innovation, efficiency, adaptability, collaboration. During the meeting, Daniel's supervisor laid out concerns. "We've noticed a pattern," she said carefully. "Some teams feel unheard." Daniel felt heat rise in his face. He waited, composed. She continued, "We value your experience, but flexibility matters now." Daniel nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply decided they were wrong. A week later, he was reassigned. Same pay for now, less influence, fewer decisions. At home that night, Claire noticed immediately. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine." "Something happened at work." Daniel paused. This was the moment, the rare opening, but the words stuck. Admitting vulnerability felt like losing ground. It's nothing, just corporate nonsense. Claire studied him. Then she nodded, slowly. That nod wasn't agreement, it was resignation. 2 weeks later, Claire told him she needed space. Not a fight, not an ultimatum, just space. Daniel felt blindsided. "Where's this coming from?" he asked. Claire took a breath. "I've been telling you for years." Daniel wanted to argue, to explain, to correct. Instead, he said, "You're exaggerating." That was the moment something broke. Not loudly, but completely. Claire moved out the following month. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Daniel's house felt unfamiliar, too quiet. Every room echoed with things unsaid. He replayed conversations in his head, not to understand them, but to win them retroactively. At work, the changes deepened. Marcus was promoted. His ideas were implemented. Daniel watched from the sidelines, telling himself it was politics, but doubt had begun to creep in. Late at night, alone, Daniel asked himself questions he had avoided for decades. What if I was wrong? What if being right cost me everything? He remembered Claire's face during their last conversation. Not angry, not sad, just tired. Pride, it doesn't leave ruins immediately. It leaves absence. No messages, no shared laughter, no one to notice when you come home late. Months passed. One evening, Daniel received an email from Claire. Short, polite. She had filed for divorce. Daniel stared at the screen, waiting for something else to appear. An explanation, an invitation to talk. Nothing came. For the first time, Daniel couldn't argue his way out of reality. The real cost of pride wasn't the divorce papers or the job changes. It was the realization that Daniel had confused control with strength. He thought leading meant deciding. He thought listening meant weakness. He thought apologies erased authority. But sitting alone in his quiet house, none of that mattered. He started therapy, not because he believed in it, but because there was nowhere else to go. The therapist asked simple questions. Why was it important to be right? Daniel didn't know. Who taught you that apologizing meant losing? He thought of his father, the silence, the unresolved arguments, patterns he had inherited without question. Pride, Daniel realized, wasn't confidence. It was fear, dressed up as certainty. Fear of being wrong, fear of being seen, fear of needing others. Understanding this didn't fix his life, but it explained it. Pride rarely announces itself as the villain. It presents itself as logic, as strength, as self-respect. But real strength allows room for doubt. Real confidence doesn't fear questions. Real leadership listens. Daniel learned too late that relationships don't collapse because of one big mistake. They erode through small refusals, to listen, to soften, to admit fault. The life lesson wasn't about blame. It was about awareness. Every decision carries weight, especially the quiet ones. Choosing to be right over being connected. Choosing silence over vulnerability. Choosing pride over growth. These choices feel harmless in the moment. They aren't. Daniel still lives in the same house, still drives the same car, still goes to work every day. From the outside, nothing looks broken. But now he knows the difference between peace and emptiness. And sometimes, late at night, he wonders, how many relationships don't end in explosions, but in silence, caused by pride we never questioned?